but
Mate, Ruben Amorim ain't it. Mate, because there is absolutely zero on his Premier League CV that suggests he will be good at Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. Zero. So I find that pretty confusing that he's been hired, but
I genuinely think it all comes together to be the best thing that you can watch in sports, particularly for a modern day generation.
Oh man,
this is TikTok sport at its best.
Hello, welcome along to Not Another Sports Pod, episode 59 with myself, David, and Mr. Oliver Wilson on the pod this week. Let's talk all things Premier League. Let's talk about the dominance of Erling Haaland. Let's talk about the title race. Let's talk about Aston Villa, who still haven't scored a goal in the Premier League. Big Ange is back, but for how long? Ollie Wilson sent me a voice note on Saturday night that was so excitable. It was like a child at Christmas because it just covered Juve 4, Inter 3. Let's also talk Ricky Hatton. Very, very sad news about Ricky Hatton, a very popular figure in British sport and boxing. The golf at Wentworth. Also want to look a little bit at the cycling, Ollie, which was stopped by protest for what's going on in Gaza. And I want to ask you the question. I'm going to give you 45 minutes to think about it. Are protests that stop a sporting event acceptable or not? But let's dive in with the Premier League and the good stuff, Ollie. And let's start with the Manchester derby, because Erling Haaland is the best number 9 in the world. The only one that is close to him is Kylian Mbappe. And Kylian Mbappe is better because he looks better. He's a more beautiful footballer to look at. He's a more dynamic and exciting and fluid and easy on the eye striker. But if we're just going by hard data, it's pretty close between the pair of them. And Erling Haaland, I thought, was immense in the Manchester derby. And just to kind of double down on his achievements, and the big one I think that people will talk about in the years to come, is Alan Shearer's Premier League record of 260 goals in 441 games. Erling Haaland is 90 in 101 games. He's on track to smash it. Erling Haaland, fantastic. Man City win. Pep Guardiola back in business.
Yeah, Erling Haaland, I mean, we were talking about, is Erling Haaland underrated the other week, and we said, he set a barrier that was too high for himself to start, and everybody was like, well, okay, this is just what it is, and it's become normal to watch this sort of performance. I mean, it was another level from him against Manchester United. That it's one of those games where he's genuinely unstoppable. And when you're talking about number 9s, Kylian Mbappe is like the modern number 9 because he can play wide. Like, he really started playing more wide than down the centre as a centre forward. But Erling Haaland is like if you took a centre forward from the Alan Shearer era, the proper out-and-out number 9, just a goal scorer, and you built him in a lab with modern-day technology. He's faster, he's stronger, he's more powerful, he's got a more vicious shot on him, and he can do just a few of those extra bits that maybe a number 9 from Shearer's era wouldn't necessarily be expected to do to fit into the modern-day game of football. It was clinical. It was terrible from Manchester United, and I think that has to be raised as the alternative to that. Haaland was great, and you have to give him his flowers for what happened in the Manchester derby. But
Ollie Wilson's phrase of 2025, by the way, keeping up with the kids. Seen this drift into a few podcasts. Give him his flowers.
Yeah, sorry.
Do not apologise, mate.
No, I get stuck on these things.
And aesthetically as well. So yeah, dive in.
Well, I used to have. In any way, shape or form used to be one that would always come out, and I've had to stop myself from doing that one. And then the number of times I hear that coming through on commentary or TV broadcasts, I'm like, see, everybody uses it loads.
You get those ticks. I was commentating on Saturday and I said a fullback was full of beans, and I was like, that's a nice little phrase, I'll use that again. But then I used it again in the second half, and then it's weird. Like, you use it once and it's like, that's an interesting turn of phrase in a commentary. Use it second time and it's like, why has that guy said full of beans twice? So yeah, it happens.
He's sponsored by Heinz, Dave Windsor. But, yeah, Ruben Amorim, there's this discussion this week now about Amorim sticking to his style. And he said, if my style's going to change, you're going to have to boot me out of Manchester United, basically. We're not changing anything. This is the way I work. This is why you brought me in. This will work eventually. And he's got firm belief in his style. And I get that. I understand that. Be a man of having conviction in your own work. But it doesn't work at the moment. It didn't work on Sunday. It was so easy for City to play United off the park. He's got players playing out of their best positions right now. They haven't solved the problems. I mean, you want to talk about, obviously, United have clearly highlighted that goalkeeper is a weakness for them. Now, there was a player out there that United could have gone and spent money on, and they decided not to. Manchester City went out and spent the money on Donnarumma, and he produced a couple of fantastic saves that just showed why, don't get me wrong, Donnarumma's not the best player with the ball at his feet, but he's one of the best shot stoppers in the world. And that's what a goalkeeper's there to do, is to keep efforts out the back of the net. They've realised, understood that City, and they've filled it in with one of the best players in that position on the planet. United haven't done that. They've gone and looked for like a slightly cheaper option, and he's still on the bench anyway this weekend rather than playing. I mean, when is a goalkeeper not... I can sometimes understand it with outfield players, but why, if you bring in a brand new goalkeeper, is he not in between the posts straight away? Because it's not really a tactical position. You're not worried about whether he's going to understand what he needs to do in that role. No, you need a brand new goalkeeper. You went and got one, and then you got him sat on the bench for 90 minutes. I don't understand this in the same way, the whole idea of Alexander Isak, as we've discussed, needing to sit and wait with Liverpool. And no, you buy these players and you spend a lot of money on these players to be impact players. There's absolutely no right whatsoever that you don't play a goalkeeper.
Mate, Ruben Amorim ain't it. And from now, it's just a question of how long can he survive. Because he isn't it. I've seen enough. And so have most Man United fans, so have most neutral observers. He's been given far too much grace. The Premier League, everyone wants to be part of the Premier League because that's where all the fucking money is. Like, that's where the highest wages are. That's where the biggest profile is. That is where you earn your fortune and never have to work again. Everyone wants to be part of the Premier League. And if you're going to be part of the Premier League and you're going to manage one of the biggest football clubs in the world, you have to win football matches. He's played 31 Premier League games. He's won 8. His goal difference during that time in 31 Premier League games is minus 13. Like, you're not good, Amorim. You're not. Like, you're a lovely talker. You're a snappy dresser. You're not it. You're not the man to lead Manchester United back to where they should be. And from this point here, Ollie, it's just a question of when is the Man United hierarchy going to make the call? Because he's not it. Like, he's not turning this around, sorry. And I think, look at the Premier League table. I mean, they finished, 16th last year? They're 14th now. They've got 4 points from 4 games. He's not it, man. He's just not it. And the system is, his absolute dogmatic obsession with his system is a flaw. Like, it's a flaw. Like, it can work in the Premier League. I mean, Conte won the league playing that system 3-5-2 with Chelsea. Oh, look at Oliver Glasner and Crystal Palace, by the way, Ollie. A massive success in the Premier League with that, with the 2 wing-backs. But Ruben Amorim's obsession with it is just going to be his downfall. He's not it. And I think everyone knows that now. And it's now a question of how long will he survive. And, I'm looking at BBC Sport right now. Ruben Amorim, it's my fault. Amorim takes blame for Manchester Derby defeat. He doesn't have much time left, I don't think. I think if they're in the bottom half by November international break, I think he's in big, big trouble. And, yeah, I don't know what to say, man. Like, it was a nice idea, Ruben Amorim, the young Portuguese coach with, great English, and he looks and kind of feels like a Man United manager should be, but he's not the one.
Well, as we kind of joked about, it's knockoff Jose, isn't it? Yeah. Timu Jose. I mean, looks and everything will get you absolutely nowhere if the results are bad. But he's trying to play a style of football and a system that he can't play with the players that he's got because he's playing people out of position, as I say. You can't have Bruno Fernandes in a deep-sitting midfield role. He's not that sort of player. He's not the ball winner or anything like that. He is a number 10 at the end of the day for Manchester United. It was highlighted this week, Luke Shaw playing left side of a back 3. That's not where Luke Shaw wants to play. It's not where he is best playing. He's best playing on the wing, bombing up down a left wing back position or a traditional left back position. But on the left side of a back 3, that's not where he's meant to be playing. So if you're going to stick to your guns, why haven't you gone out and bought players that can play the system that you want? As for what comes after Amorim, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, Oliver Glasner's He's the favourite to be the next Man United manager.
But what again? Like, I understand the draw of a Manchester United. Well, I used to understand the draw of a Manchester United. I absolutely don't anymore at this point in our football viewing history.
Training ground though.
Oh yeah, new £50 million complex or whatever. That will bring people in. Why on earth would you want to go and touch this Manchester United club right now? Considering the rotation of managers, the fact that they've gone for young, snazzy, new thinking Amorim doesn't work. They've gone for old school, doesn't work. They've gone for middle ground, doesn't work. Like, it's not a manager that has come in and been able to really find a sustained level of success, aside from, a UEFA Cup under Jose or whatever. Like, that wasn't sustained success, and that was always a marriage that was going to end badly because that's what happens with
second
Mourinho.
Under Solskjaer. I mean, all these look like heady days now compared to what's going on under Ruben Amorim. How long's he got then, Ollie?
I mean, till Christmas probably.
Max.
And then United's do. We've done a bad 12 months. Apologies. Big thanks to Ruben. He's tried. We're really passionate and wish him the best going forward. But yeah, it's just that Manchester United starting 11 is never going to beat that Manchester City starting 11. And if you were a United fan with all the optimism in the world going into this weekend, you would have looked at the two team sheets and gone, nah, just not. It's just not there.
Let's talk about Liverpool top of the Premier League table. And one thing I think now about the modern football manager, Ollie, is that the most important part of being a modern football manager is getting your substitutions right. And I say this because in the past, it used to be signing players was a big mark of how good you were as a football manager. But these days, the head coach does not sign the players. You've got the transfer committee, you've got the scouts, you've got the sporting director. So that's really nothing to do with the head coach. Another part, maybe 20, 30 years ago, would be the actual coaching of the footballers that a head coach would be involved in. But these days, especially at the top clubs, you're getting footballers in their early, mid-20s who have essentially been coached out their eyeballs since they were 4 or 5 years old. They've been coached. They are essentially who they are. So what's left in terms of characteristics and qualities in a top football manager in 2025 is your ability to manage the personalities in a group of 20-something very, very confident young men who are millionaires, and 2, the ability to change a game as it's happening. And Arne Slot has both of these characteristics. 38 minutes into the game against Burnley on Sunday, Ollie, Milos Kerkez is on a yellow card, and Arne Slot substitutes him because he thinks he's about to get sent off, the left-back Milos Kerkez. And I wonder how many managers, mate, are waiting till half-time to make that call. How many managers are thinking, he's on a yellow, but you know what, there's 7-8 minutes to half-time. Let's just get to half-time, have a chat with him, then maybe make the change. Not Arne Slot. Clinical, ruthless. He understands the optics are terrible of hauling a player off on 38 minutes that you've chosen to start with. But he does it because Kerkez is on a yellow card. He thinks he's going to get sent on Andy Robertson. And then late on in the game when Liverpool need a goal, he brings on Rio Ngamoa, 17-year-old, and Jeremy Frimpong on the right-hand side. Completely opens up the game. Suddenly Liverpool look much more dangerous, win a penalty, Salah scores, and Liverpool win the game. So I do think that that is why you pay the big money for someone to be in charge of a football club. That's why you pay a CEO massive money, because they're prepared to make huge decisions, unpopular decisions at big moments that alter the course of an organisation or a football club or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, look at Liverpool's 4 games in the Premier League this season. 4 games, 4 late winners, pretty much all inspired by Slot substitutions. And that's a big, big carrot, especially these days when you've got 5 subs to work with.
What's it, 6 goals this season so far in the final 10 minutes of games?
I mean, every game they've scored after 83 minutes, basically.
And I can't put my finger on whether that's a good quality or a bad one, because if you get to the end of the season and Liverpool are winning a title race, you say that's what... I mean, it's so easy to put that brush up. That's what good teams do. That's what title winners do. They always have the belief. Burnley's not an easy place to go either. Never has been, never will be in the Premier League, excuse me. It's...
they were 10 men behind the ball, Ollie, sitting in their own 18-yard box. I can't begrudge it, by the way, because if they get a point against the champions, that's a magnificent result for Scott Parker.
Yeah, and he's never lost at home still as Burnley manager until this weekend, Scott Parker. I mean, it's a super record, and we know that his side has the defensive ability and discipline to be able to sit in and try and soak that up. And, I was a bit gutted, to be honest, because I got a soft spot for Scott Parker and for Burnley and how they've gone about last season and trying to start this season as well. But it was just one of those wearing down, and you cannot... It's so difficult to play that game of holding on, whether you're down to 10 men or whether it's just that sort of approach that happens from the get-go when it's 11 against 11. You see it quite often, teams trying to sit in, soak up. All it takes is one error, one moment. Liverpool get that, come away with 3 points, and we will probably end up looking at this as that's another one of those games where they never give up. And Arne Slot, as you touched on there, bringing off Kerkez, has made the right decision. And I understand that. I'm not going to laud him too much for pulling off a defender before half-time.
Not many managers do it, mate. You'll see that a handful of times in a Premier League season.
Yeah, I know, but if Kerkez gets to half-time or plays into the hour mark, no one's even batting an eyelid about it at all. But Arne Slot recognises, okay, fair enough. I want you to be able to go in and put yourself about a bit more, and that's now not going to be able to happen, so I need to make a change. I mean, Slot is reacting to the way that he wants his players to go and play football. So I don't think it's like an incredible move from him. I think it's just, okay, like I want Kirkish to be able to put his weight about a bit and have that bit of freedom, which he's now restricted by having that early booking. And maybe he doesn't have that early booking if he doesn't go putting himself about so much anyway. So it's just a natural move that Arne Slot has to make. I mean, my thing was, Federico Chiesa came on and almost scored with his first touch of the game. And
he was annoyed he didn't, by the way.
Yeah, and you could see Fafanculo straight at his lips as he's walking away from that.
Because when Isak's in the side, I mean, how much is Chiesa going to play? Just on Chiesa briefly, because I know you've kind of tracked his career, Ollie, and I followed him a bit when he was in Italy. I mean, he's got to move, doesn't he, realistically? January, I think when Isak's fit, and then it's Isak and Ekitike, because at the moment Chiesa's coming off the bench as a false nine to take off Ekitike. But, I mean, he's not getting minutes. He's not even in Liverpool Champions League squad, so presumably he goes back to Italy in January.
More than likely. I just think he's been he's quite a good impact player for Liverpool to still have. And that versatility, more than anything else, that ability to play left, right and centre is really huge for the depth for Arne Slot. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if actually they kept hold of him. He's not going to be too happy about it, but not being in the Champions League may mean that he gets more minutes in the Premier League this season,
African
in other
Cup of
cups,
Nations,
obviously.
by the way, so Mo Salah's away December, January.
I was going to say they've got to deal with the AFCON issue as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if you're looking at next season that Chiesa goes, if he's unhappy with the role that he ends up playing with Liverpool this year, if he goes, look, I want to get back to playing more first-team football once again. And some of that will be dictated as well about how Gennaro Gattuso uses him or maybe doesn't use him in the Italy squad as well, going into, obviously, the World Cup next summer, if they make it. No.
And how is he going to get in if he's barely playing?
Well, exactly, and it might be a case of he's happy to take the money for another year and miss out on a World Cup potentially, because he'll probably get a move back to Italy regardless, because there are enough teams that would certainly be able to use him.
But he won't get a Premier League wage.
No, but that's the choice that every single footballer has to make at the point. Everybody wants to be in the Premier League until they're not playing. Look at Raheem Sterling, could have gone anywhere, and look at his career just
300 grand a week. The funniest quote from Enzo Maresca this week. I don't know if you saw it, Ollie. Someone asked him about Sterling. He was like, I haven't even seen Sterling for months now. And I was like, what? Like, he hasn't even physically seen him because he's training on like a different part of the training ground. Crazy.
That was one of the best and brightest that English football had. And
mate, Raheem Sterling in his pomp loved him.
He is like a sadder story than the Scott Sinclair one. If Scott Sinclair went to Manchester City and never saw a football pitch again.
Yeah, but Raheem Sterling's won trophies, Ollie. So I don't know quite
that's
how
what
sad
I mean.
It is.
Well, no, that's sad, but that's sadder because Raheem Sterling has a much better backing of his footballing past than Scott Sinclair ever had. But he's become the same man that Scott Sinclair was. It's such a further fall from grace for Raheem Sterling. And it's like, guy could have gone anywhere to play some football, but he's just happy to... Well, maybe he's not happy at the moment, but he's just taking...
For anyone who hasn't tracked this story, so Raheem Sterling's got 300 grand a week and he's got 2 years left in his contract with Chelsea. Chelsea obviously want to get rid of him because they've got no intention of playing him, but there is a contract and he's contracted for 2 more years at 300 grand a week. You do the maths, it's a shitload of money. And Raheem Sterling said he doesn't want to go to Saudi, he doesn't want to go anywhere else. He wants to stay in London. So he's reliant then on a London club, A, wanting him, B, paying a lot of his wages or all of his wages, and Chelsea maybe picking up the rest. So he's kind of created, and he's obviously happy. I wouldn't say happy. He's obviously content, Raheem Sterling, to potter around and train by himself and pick up the money. I mean, he's only 30 years old, mate, by the way. Could West Ham
I was going to say, he's not past. He's pretty much in that, like, back end of his pomp, 30, 31. Like, these are meant to be the best footballing years of your career, and you are just... It must be a very weird existence. I'm off to work again, sweetheart. And she's like, I know you're not working, I'm not working. Like,
weekends
don't
off.
even pretend.
Presumably he doesn't travel with the team, right? So
why would you? Yeah, not a chance.
Weekends off, so he's probably there, like, and they probably get a day off on Monday, so it's probably Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for 3 hours a day.
But they're travelling for the Champions League, or so, is he going to be doing that? Probably not. So
it's just like having a personal trainer full time. That's what because presumably Chelsea have an obligation to train him in some way, right? So he'll go in and there'll be some kind of personal training going on.
Yeah, and so he's just milling around, staying physically fit enough to be able to be needed if needed, but never going to be needed. I mean,
Unbelievable situation. Let's wrap up the rest of the Premier League. I mean, there weren't too many goals in the Premier League this weekend. Only other thing that really jumped off the page at me, Ollie, was West Ham 0, Tottenham 3. I mean, Graham Potter's in big trouble. I don't know what to say, really. It's not an amazing West Ham squad, but Graham Potter should be doing a lot better. I think he just looks a little bit lost. He's basically relying on Jarrod Bowen or Lucas Paquetá to pull something out the bag. Otherwise, I just don't see where they're going to score any goals. They conceded 11 goals, mate, in 4 games. It's nearly 3 a game. It's abysmal.
They're in this game, though, until Souček gets sent off. And you go down to 10 men against Tottenham, and suddenly life's a bit harder. West Ham made one of the best moves that I've ever seen, though, in the Premier League this week. And I don't know if you saw it. But the banning of all half-and-half scarves, T-shirts, sporting paraphernalia from the ground for this game, which was like, that's a bold move, because there are a lot of travelling supporters who come to watch these games, obviously from overseas. I've made the benefit of going to see European football. There are a lot of fans that want to come and see English football from abroad. And there are a lot of fans that would take buying a half-and-half scarf because it's a trip to see a Premier League game. They might not be Tottenham or West Ham fans. And there's a lot of money in that for the Premier League these days. And West Ham have just gone, fine, you can be that tourist fan. Cool. Come in, have a beer at £7-8 a beer, whatever. Like, spend your money. But if you come in with one of those knockoff half-and-half scarves that is being sold outside the ground that we don't take any money on anyway, now you can put that in the bin. Buy it afterwards and piss off home, but you can put it in the bin because you're not coming in. I thought that was great. To keep genuine footballing rivalry and integrity as well in the stands, rather than having half-and-half flags and scarves plastered all over the place. The only time it's acceptable is either at a cup final, if you're a neutral, or if you're somebody who's got children in both camps. So you say...
Well, it's never acceptable, mate. It's never acceptable. It's acceptable with the European away side. Like, you know, you're on the road and you go to Galatasaray and you get a Galatasaray Spurs half and half. I think that's quite fun, a little memento. But otherwise, this is completely unacceptable. Never. Should we talk Big Ange?
He's back. I said he'd be back. Well, I said Nuno would be gone. I don't know. It's not a good welcome back, though, is it? I mean, it was obviously great. I spoke to the person that went to his pre-match press conference this week for PLP on Friday, and he said, like, nobody asked him initially about the fact that it was Arsenal on the first game back. Like, is this quite a fun one for you as the former Spurs boss or anything? And so, yeah, when it gets around to Rich having these conversations, he's like, yeah, you know, it's kind of interesting. Did you sign and then see the first game that was coming up? Or were you like, yeah, I want to be in for this one, or what? I mean, couldn't be a better story of Big Ange coming back to the Premier League, and he's going to win the UEFA Cup. He's going to win the Europa League once again. This is going to be the story of Forest. Well, will be fine in the Premier League, I'm sure. You know, it's a tough start, Arsenal away, and they got hammered, like convincing 3-0 victory for Arsenal. But it's going to be those European nights that Forest fans are going to live and die on. And I could have Big Ange winning it for them. I definitely could.
One thing's for sure, Ollie, he won't do well in the Premier League. Like, we've seen that. He's not a good Premier League manager. Look at Tottenham's record. He's an appalling Premier League manager. So, a little bit unusual for me that you would hire a manager who's proven to be appalling in the Premier League, because there is absolutely zero on his Premier League CV that suggests he will be good at Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. Zero. So, I find that pretty confusing that he's been hired, but he has. And as you say, the only reason he's been hired is to win the Europa League, because that's what he does. So Ange Postecoglou got away with one at Tottenham. Let's be very clear about that. I'm also a big admirer of Ange, because I'm an admirer of anyone that does exactly what they say they were going to do. But let's make no mistake about it. I mean, this is about Ange Postecoglou somehow surviving and picking up enough points in the Premier League that he doesn't get sacked, and then trying to win the Europa League. That will be Ange Postecoglou's career. And when it falls apart in early April, when he gets knocked out in the quarterfinals of the Europa League, it ends in tears. Would be my prediction.
I think Ange is probably just an available manager right now with Premier League experience. With
yeah, but Ollie, Premier League experience, mate. He was a disaster. They finished fucking 17th. Tottenham.
Yeah, but a Premier League experience, an ability to win in Europe, and it's a big enough name that will appease Forest fans. I don't think it's got anything to do with like the Greek names and heritage or anything like that. I think it's just, right, who else would I get right now? Who else would you go and get right now as a football manager?
Is that a good basis for recruiting the most important man at your football club? Well, there's no one else, so let's go with Ange.
Well, you have to recruit somebody.
But, I mean,
you have to bring somebody.
He's a much better Premier League manager than Ange Postecoglou, right?
Yeah, those bridges were burnt. I mean, that's why I said at the beginning of the season he was always going to be the first manager to go.
I mean, I think if Nuno was Greek, I think he'd still be in a job. Am I allowed to say that? Am I getting cancelled somehow? I don't know.
You go and get the only other name that springs to mind of like potential good young manager be Thiago Motta.
Loved him at Bologna. I mean, this is one for them. We'll talk about Italian football in a moment, but I mean, he was fantastic at Bologna. Didn't track him at Juventus, so I don't know what happened, but by all accounts, it was a disaster.
It was terrible. And so he needs something like that to rebuild a career. But if you're comparing an Italian side to an English side, you'd look at a Bologna and go, yeah, they're about in the same position that a Forest are of, crikey, they've just exceeded expectations slightly. And it's almost like if Thiago Motta had stayed with Bologna rather than making his way off to Juventus, him taking this Forest job would be like, right, what's the next step to try and elevate this team to the next level? But I can't think of many other like good managers that would be in this position to be able to take this job right now. And there seems to be honest, a real lack of high quality football managers to go out and get, unless I'm missing something.
I mean, I don't know, Ollie. I'm just wondering if I'm going to get cancelled for something about saying I bet the cock because they're both Greek. So they might have to cut this bit out anyway, mate. We definitely couldn't have had the 30 minutes of chat pre-pod in available to broadcast. Right, let's talk about football on the continent. Before we talk Italian football, Ollie, Trent Alexander-Arnold on the bench again for Real Madrid, gets 8 minutes at the end. Real Madrid keep winning games. Carvajal, their right back. Not a great start for him. Out of the England squad, not in the Real Madrid team.
Well, you've gone to the toughest place in the world to be considered a good player at the end of the day. You have to take solace in the players that have gone there and not performed early and have been able to turn careers around at Real Madrid. And there's an element of patience for sure. But yeah, there's clearly a hierarchy right now for that position, and it's not Trent Alexander-Arnold leading the way. But Real Madrid, I was about to say Real Madrid wouldn't spend money for no reason, but I guess they sometimes do, don't they, as a club? So you can't look at it as it's all... Yeah, well, ish. I mean, he's costing them a lot of money, much like Raheem Sterling's costing Chelsea a lot of money, but at this point. But yeah, it's...
One thing I'd say about Trent is like he does have the quality to turn that around, and Carvajal won't go on forever. I mean, Carvajal's an absolute god in Madrid, so I think he'll keep the shirt for the next year or two. But Trent does have that ability to come into the team and a couple of assists here and a goal there, and suddenly things look very different. But I mean, it's not great.
But you need to make that.
He's not going to the World Cup unless there's a massive change in fortunes. He's not going to the World Cup.
You need to make that impact. Make sure you're making that impact when you do get your opportunities to play. 8 minutes probably isn't going to be enough to give you those opportunities. And if Real Madrid, I think the other thing is Real Madrid's starting the winning season, so nobody at Madrid is batting an eyelid that their new shiny right back is not playing because we're winning. That's all that matters at these football clubs. And it could be a poison chalice if you're suddenly sat there and you've come in at the wrong moment, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and actually you have to sit and wait. And that could be detrimental because if you're not playing, when you do get the opportunity to play, you are offbeat slightly. Or it could just be a case of patience will wear out. You'll get your opportunities in a very busy season. And when you do, if you take them, this is going to be the start of a rise. But as I say, I'll always look towards that Luka Modric signing of he was the worst football player ever bought by Real Madrid in the first 6 months. And then 6 years later, he's the best signing that Real Madrid have ever had. So it is just a case of, I think, being patient for Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Just wrapping up on the Premier League very quickly, sorry, something that skipped my mind is Jordan Henderson. Now, I watched the second half of the Brentford game against Chelsea. Mate, he's really good. Like, I'd sort of forgotten that Jordan Henderson's really good. And I was as guilty as anyone of, Jordan Henderson, what's he doing back in the England squad? He's finished. Like, what Thomas Tuchel, that's really odd. But, mate, he's really good. And... Thomas Tuchel, in terms of England, doesn't care. Like he's got 10 months left on his contract. He doesn't care about falling out with people. He's just going to pick his favourites and try and win the World Cup, right? So Jordan Henderson's going to the 2026 World Cup in the US. He's 35 years of age, but He's going, and I think it's an interesting. I think what Tuchel's done is interesting because he doesn't have the time or inclination to forge long-term relationships with people. So he's just happy to fall out with people he doesn't like, include his favourites, and try and win the World Cup. And Henderson's going to be part of that.
Yeah, it's also a position for Jordan Henderson where, as long as he's not being expected to make that role a box-to-box role, there's longevity in that role of just sitting deep. We've seen it in so many great players throughout the end of their careers. I'm not suggesting he's a Andrea Pirlo or anything like that, but it's that same role of I just need to sit in the middle, hunker down, be a ball winner and a distributor, and bring others into play, and that's fine. Like, you can be just the link man from front to back. It's perfect, or back to front, excuse me. I mean, he's a Brentford, so
yeah. But I mean, even after Brentford, I imagine different player to James Milner, but I imagine next 2 or 3 years, Ollie, there's always going to be a promoted club or a side that's going to be battling relegation that will find a place for Jordan Henderson. So
35 to 36 is a really tough age, though, to be continuing.
Yeah, but when he's got his hands around the Jules Rimet Trophy in July, Ollie, people are going to want a World Cup winner, aren't they?
They're still using that. The Jules Rimet.
I like calling it that, yeah. Because every other trophy in the world is like the Champions League trophy or what other trophies are there,
Well, the Champions League trophy is the European Cup. Like, it always is. It's just the European Cup.
Sure, but I mean, not how many trophies in the world, Ollie, have the name,
a proper
like the
name.
Jules Rimet?
Well, the Gianni Infantino Keyhole Classic, or whatever the Club World Cup is called. Yeah,
on this pod, that's for sure. I'd love a job, maybe in his inner circle. Right, Juventus 4, Inter Milan 3. How good was it, Ollie, and why does it matter in terms of the Serie A standings?
It's the best game of football I'll watch in a long, long time.
You
honestly.
Said ever, mate, on WhatsApp. Have you calmed down since then?
No, it's the best game I've ever commentated on by a mile. And I'm going to try to use a comparison that I was actually watching last night in American football. But when you see a high-scoring game and somebody says, wow, what a game, and you're like, yeah, but there's no quality in this. It's not high-scoring and therefore it's good. Like last night, the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants had a big shootout in Dallas in the NFL, but it was poor standards of American football. And then last night, you had the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in actually a really high-standard, grueling battle, which was not end-to-end, not as high-scoring, but fantastic to watch. And Inter against Juve was that level of game of two sides who clearly can play well, can defend well, can attack well, and had very set styles of play to go about their business on Saturday. And it created just this melting pot of a chess match in midfield with exciting drama going forward, and every single goal was an absolute banger. If you haven't gone back and watched the highlights, Hakan Çalhanoğlu scores one of the best goals that you'll see in European football this season, where he takes it on the chest. He's going away from goal on the top right corner of the 18-yard box, and he turns, or on the turn, volleys it with his right boot back across goal into the bottom corner. And it's genuinely a take-your-breath-away moment. And even the two weaker goals that were scored in this 7-goal thriller, you've got the two Thuram brothers. You've got Marcus and Kefren on either side. And Marcus Thuram scores with a header to seemingly give into the lead with 14 minutes to go plus stoppage time. And I joked with my co-commentator on air. I was like, well, the only thing we need now is Kefren Thuram's going to score the equaliser and nullify the goal from his brother. And 4 minutes later, that's exactly what happened. Kefren Thuram nods one home and gives it the big one. Lilian Thuram's watching in the stand, of course. And then suddenly this teenager, Adzic, turns up for Juventus in stoppage time with a 30-yard screamer. And Jan Sommer's made two mistakes for Inter. Adzic, sorry, yeah. And Jan Sommer's made two mistakes on two of the goals. Yildiz has hit one from distance in the first half, and he's got a fingertip to it, but not been able to keep it out. And probably should have kept out the last one as well. And he's going to get dropped. And Inter are now looking for a new goalkeeper. There's going to be a change for the Champions League coming up this week.
Is it a Napoli-Juventus title race? Both have 3 wins and 3 at the start of the Serie A season.
Yeah, but I think that Inter are still in this as well. I think Milan are still in this. Like, Milan have made adjustments this year. Obviously, Allegri's come in, still just getting his feet under the table with Milan.
It's also the Juventus-Inter, Ollie, is the Derby d'Italia, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's the biggest game in Italian football, arguably.
But it's weird because Juventus are obviously in Turin, which is about 45 minutes an hour away from Milan.
It's Manchester United Liverpool in Italy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the David and Ollie because it's the two sides who were the most dominant until Milan came to kind of prominence in the 80s. The most dominant. There's 56 league titles shared between them, 20 for Inter, 30 for Juventus. It was a term coined back in 1969 by the Gazzetta dello Sport. There was a journalist that called it the Derby of Italy, basically saying it's the derby of Italian football. Nothing else comes close to this. And look, it's been a game that's had loads of controversy in the past, and the main thing for me was like loads of times you get the big un of all of these games. You know, the number of stats and facts that the Italian press were churning out before this game, and you know the weight of expectation. This is only the third time it's been played in the first 3 match days of a Serie A season. I mean, we're getting into like the real minutiae of it, and the game can sometimes never really struggle to live up to the big billing. And actually, it wasn't. It was. If just go back and watch the highlights, any football fan of just this game, and you'll see how high quality this was. And it's a big statement win for Juventus, particularly with all the comings and goings that were meant to be happening. You know, Tejan Koopmeiners was meant to be leaving. Dusan Vlahovic was meant to be leaving this summer. Both have ended up staying. Vlahovic is costing Juventus so much money, but at the end of the day, they keep on winning. He had his first start this weekend. They've got now Pender's come in, and Jonathan David was signed earlier this year. So they've got 3 centre forwards now that they can fight on a lot of fronts with and have a bit of difference in terms of Igor Tudor and how he sets up his side. They went for broke at the end. And then you've got Inter, who've got this, you know, Marcus Thuram is fantastic as a centre forward. Lautaro Martinez had only just got back from South America, so he's going to be tired. You've still got Nicola Barella, who can pull the strings. This is a great Inter side that can still easily fight for a title, even if it is slightly ageing. You know, Acerbi, Bastoni, and whoever they want to bring in alongside. I mean, they brought in a Akanji this week. Obviously, gets his debut after joining from Man City.
I'm surprised Bastoni hasn't been picked up by a Premier League club. Not picked up, I'm bought out, basically.
He's so good.
He's amazing, man.
So good.
I loved him years ago. I was like, how is a Premier League club not signing this elegant left-footed centre-back?
And you're talking about Luke Shaw can't play left on that back 3 for Manchester United. Bastoni can play left back if needed. Left wing back could be a stretch, but he's tall but rangy in his movement and has that, as you say, the elegance. He just glides around the pitch. I mean, he's playing almost up alongside either Di Marco or Carlos Augusto or whoever's playing in that left wing back role for Inter. He pushes so high up the pitch, has the ability to get back, and he's so solid defensively. He had a shocker for Italy in the international break by all accounts, but in general, he's a fantastic player. And him and Acerbi have got a great relationship between the pair of them.
I want to talk golf and Ricky Hatton, Ollie, but first, let me just mention the final stage of the Vuelta was abandoned because of protests. Now, the final stage of the Vuelta a España was abandoned after pro-Palestinian protesters entered part of the course in the centre of Madrid. The reason this interests me is because there's not many sporting events that could be stopped by protest. But because the way cycling is, and obviously you'll know a lot about this, Ollie's it does a lot of triathlon commentary, because the fans are so close to it and are basically in the event, aren't they? It's an easier one to stop than so many. I want to be really careful here. Let me say, first of all, that I think that the ability to congregate and protest peacefully is an absolute bedrock of Western democracy, right? Without that, you've got nothing. Go and live in Russia or North Korea. So it's absolutely vital that people have the license to protest about anything they so desire, as long as it is peaceful. But they've disrupted and cancelled a sporting event. So where do we stand on this, Ollie? I mean, where's the line in terms of protests? Should you be allowed to protest at a sporting event? Should you be allowed to disrupt a sporting event? And I guess my main issue here, just to go a little bit more macro on all this, is I essentially got into sport and started falling in love with sport and football specifically because it was escapism from everything else. And I still believe that most people tune in to any sporting event to essentially escape everything else. And I don't personally love the introduction of protests into sport because of that reason. But at the same time, I hold the simultaneous belief that as I say, like, if you can't protest, you've got nothing. So I support people's right to protest even stuff I don't agree with. What do we think about this?
Well, sport and politics goes hand in hand, unfortunately.
And always has done. And I'm not saying it's a new thing. It's not. Yeah.
You know, no one's complaining about Jesse Owens
putting the
fist up, during the Olympics and like things like very small moments in political history have been almost defined by sport, like the Chinese ping pong team giving the American ping pong team a lift home from training during the Olympics in the middle of the Cold War was just considered like this unbelievable gesture of, hey, look, sport is so much bigger than politics, and these guys just see each other as athletes, and a pretty pivotal kind of historic moment both in sport and in political history at that time. It's different, I think, the protests between athletes and protesters. An athlete sending a message and using a platform for positivity is obviously a good thing. The difference comes when, people will argue that there are grey areas or one side actually is incorrect or the other side is incorrect. And with every protest, whatever it is, whether it's political, social, there's always going to be people that aren't happy with it. And then in this modern day culture where everything is seen on social media and either twisted or manipulated or changed, and the narrative is sometimes unclear of how and why things are happening, it's very difficult to find complete total it's never black and white. It's never one side or the other, good versus bad or anything like that. So many grey areas in every single topic that gets discussed. Christ, we spend hours deliberating over VAR, which is meant to be clear cut. You know what I mean? Like, no, but it's true. Like, we're finding the minutiae of grey areas in that. Sure. So when you get onto anything on a global...
Like a conflict in a faraway land that dates back to biblical times, like, of course it's it's very, very layered.
It's like, none of us have the correct amount of information to be able to make a fully educated, or very few of us to make a fully educated decision on where we side with anything on that sort of scale. So... politics is always going to be there. I think it's just more difficult to see politics and sport intertwined so much because we see so much more of the grey areas. I think the sad thing is as well is that it's the Vuelta, isn't it? It's the
Vuelta de España.
The Vuelta de España. That it's a big sporting event. Everyone thinks about the Tour de France, but the Giro d'Italia and the Vuelta de España are both large, important races in cycling, and to have something cut short like that, I mean, it's like the equivalent of cancelling because they're not rearranging it, it's cancelled. The podium ceremony cancelled. It's like having the FA Cup final or a Champions League final just cancelled, and we're just not going to do it because protests have disrupted it. And then there are just genuine sports fans that will see nothing from the outside world because it's that escapism and go, well, now you're ruining my thing, in the same way that there are, the stop oil protesters. People get annoyed when it's like, well, I'm taking my wife to hospital to have a baby. She needs to be in a hospital and you're stopping me from doing that. It's hard to think on a big scheme when you're so passionate about something on a micro level that suddenly gets taken away from you because of these protests. So I think it's a real shame that it's not been able to be rearranged. I think, as you say, the right to organise peaceful protest is massively important in modern day society and in any culture, let alone Western culture.
But
and
is it peaceful if you're
right.
disrupting an organised pre-event? Like I say, completely.
Well, yeah.
You have the right to protest. Peaceful protest is absolutely fundamental, and you have to support that with anything. It has to be a consistent thing, no matter what people are protesting for. And Spain is a fascinating one because Spain, they've got plenty of their own problems. I mean, Spain have got 9% of people in Spain live in poverty. The unemployment rates amongst under 30s is amongst the highest in Europe. So it's an interesting one that Spanish people have decided to protest against, but people can protest about whatever they so desire.
Yeah, and it's peaceful. It's disrupting a sporting event, but protest is meant to disrupt. Like, if you had 1 million people go into London to protest something or go into Washington, D.C. to protest something, that's causing a disruption. The difference is it's causing a disruption to a whole city rather than one sporting event. But causing that disruption is what gets the eyes and attention, which is the point of protest. A protest without anybody looking at it is people just sat in their back garden not really doing anything. That's a waste of time. That is a waste of a protest.
You ever been on a protest, mate?
I haven't gone on a march or anything like that.
Me neither.
No. Like,
too busy watching sport.
If I was closer to Sheffield, I might have gone on a couple of protests against Chancellor at Sheffield Wednesday. That might have got me out of bed. But I'm not going to drive the 3.5 hours to get there and 3.5 hours back
I
to
also
protest.
sort of rate getting to the end of your life and be like, didn't even go to one protest, you know. It's just sort of a combination of, I don't know, like...
I was incensed every Monday morning with Dave Windsor.
Sat fuming at home, I could never be asked to actually go and do something about it.
About the minutiae of VAR refereeing decisions.
If I was going to protest
to
on this planet, if there was like a mass let's bin VAR thing, I'd probably, like 1 million people in London to the FA headquarters protesting VAR, I'd probably get involved in that.
I mean, that does sum it all up, of your impassioned hatred of VAR and how much it genuinely you think it's ruined. Yeah, global society's falling apart at the seams. But the big one that Windsor will get out of bed for is, well, do we really need people in Stockley Park making our decisions?
I say I'd go Ollie, but I probably
wouldn't.
Like, but I'd be like, oh well, actually, like London's quite busy today, and you know I've got a few bits on. And
but is VAR? Do you think your kind of micro level look at the global world? You don't want Big Brother looking over you and scrutinising every minor decision. And actually, you want to just let society be free off the shackles, and some people can make decisions and be arbitrators, but you allow them that fallibility and give them the slack to make those mistakes, rather than having Big Brother watching us 24/7 and getting involved when it doesn't need to.
Considering I only chat to Ollie 1 hour a week, it's a bit frightening how close he's tapping into the real D Windsor here. So let's move on rather swiftly. A change in tone completely, Ollie. Ricky Hatton, man, so sad. Like I saw this, as soon as it broke, actually, because I was working on something where we did an obituary for him, and yeah, look, I mean, there's two things that are just desperately sad about this. The first is we don't know the full details, but the police aren't treating it as suspicious, and the biggest, what we can say is the biggest killer for men under the age of 50 in the UK is suicide, right? That's just a statistical reality, and Ricky Hatton had his own mental health problems, and whilst we don't have the full details, I think it's a fair thing to say that it's just an absolute preventable tragedy, Ollie, that is the case in this country. I'm going to say it again because it's so insane to me. The biggest killer of men under the age of 50 in the UK is suicide. That is a preventable thing. That's not... that's not cancer or car accident. It's really like it's a really preventable thing, and I think that an awful lot more money and time, resources, and research should go into why that is happening and how we can possibly prevent it. And then the second thing is him as just like a boxer and as a figure that if you hear all the responses to him, and I was listening to the radio as the news broke, Ollie, and there was like a phone in, and the amount of people that rang in and were like, well, I only met him once for 15 seconds, but he was such a lovely guy, or actually I was at a petrol station in Manchester once, or I was here or there. Just these tiny little anecdotes that actually are so powerful because it's how he interacted with everyone in everyday life, like anywhere around the world. People ringing in saying, oh, I met him on holiday once and this and that, and he had time for me and my kids, and I just think all that stuff's so nice, and by all accounts he's just a proper like man of the people.
Yeah, and, did things like he did dancing on ice at one point as well, and kind of showed that different side that maybe you don't often see from professional fighters in particular, where it's all about just being hard-nosed and tough. And by all accounts, I never had the pleasure of meeting Ricky Hatton, but by all accounts, he was just a lovely, lovely man at the end of the day. You never know what's going on with people behind the scenes or anything like that. The sad thing is that we were talking not too long ago about this planned return to boxing that Ricky Hatton was having, and we both, I think on this podcast, kind of said, nah, don't want to see that. Like, it's not an age that you want to see somebody going back to the ring for any reason. 46 years old when you've already had that career and had those bumps and bruises around the head and, hit such a peak. I mean, the fight against Floyd Mayweather, I remember our student union staying open for that night, and they had a late license, and all of the music was kind of stopped and over, and we were staying up still watching that fight because it was one of the biggest fights, particularly at that weight category, welterweight, that I could ever remember. Like, it was huge because Hatton was genuinely thought as this man that could take down what has now gone on to become the arguably greatest fighter of all time in Floyd Mayweather. He was one of the best growing up. And when, particularly, I wasn't a huge boxing fan growing up, but you knew who Ricky Hatton was because he had that personality and that prominence in the ring, an ability to to fight and entertain at the same time. And it's super sad. And, more details will obviously come out. You just, give all of your best thoughts to family and close friends and anybody who's been affected, obviously, by what's happened to Ricky. And you hope the best for whatever the future is. I mean, as I say, I was always wondering what this reason to return to the ring was. And, apparently he was still working out and going through those preparations to try and get back into fighting, even kind of a day or so before what's happened. And, I'm not going to go into speculation on this because it's not right to kind of speculate what anything that's happening, but it's a really sad way to see such a great person and a great sportsman, a great individual, have happened to them, have their life cut short.
Before I let you talk about golf, Ollie, I just wanted to mention, I don't know whether you saw this, but Oblique Seville became the world 100-meter world champion at the Athletics over the weekend. And something that intrigued me, Jamaican runner, Usain Bolt's cheering on in the crowd. And it's sort of a nice narrative there. But something that struck me is he ran the 100 to win it and become world champion in 9.77, right? And I saw that and I thought, God, what was Bolt's time again? Because it was a lot quicker than that, wasn't it? And I looked at it, Ollie, and it is incredible, man, that Usain Bolt in Berlin in 2009, which is quite a long time ago now, ran it in 9.58. And that time of Oblique Seville of 9.77, mate, it is the 23rd fastest ever time in the 100 meters. Like, it's not close to what Bolt did. And the pinnacle of the sport now, and you think about technological advances in that time, and I'm sure they've changed the shoes a little bit, and they've tweaked the science here and there and whatever. But that Usain Bolt world record, mate, of 9.58 on the 16th of August 2009 in Berlin, that is lasting for a long, long time. No one's close to that. I mean, Bolt also ran 9.63 in London in 2012. He ran 9.69 in Beijing in 2008. Closest to Bolt's record of 9.58 is Tyson Gay. That was back in 2009 as well, 9.69. So, Bolt has the 3 fastest 100-meter times in history, and no one else is even close.
Also, men's 100-meter sprint is maybe the best sport for the current generation, because honestly, BBC Sport put that up. I didn't even realise that the World Championships were taking place this weekend. That's my ignorance.
No, Athletics has got a problem in marketing. That's the issue there.
BBC Sport put that up on their website. I don't want to read that because the time it takes me to read the article, I can watch that race and you can experience 100-meter commentary is so impressive because there is so much information, the ability to read who's making those gains straight away and who's fast out of the blocks. And you think about, look, it's maximum of 10 athletes, but you think we both do football commentary on stuff that sometimes you haven't seen too much before, right? It takes you maybe a couple of minutes, 5 minutes into the game to really get, right, he's that guy, that guy's there, that guy's there, that guy's there. And obviously, if you're someone like Steve Cram or someone, you've been in this arena for donkey's years now, you know every single one of these sprinters inside out pretty much. But still, the recall, there is no slip up, there is no hesitation, and to pick out every single athlete perfectly as they're making their burst in 10 seconds is unreal. It's almost as impressive as the athlete themselves to me. I think it's such a good event to just slide into, and that's why it is the grandstand gala event at every single Olympics in track and field. It's amazing.
And I'm really glad you brought in the broadcast element there, Ollie, because I was just thinking that is possibly the hardest job as a sports commentator. Now, we might say, oh yeah, but you've got to call a goal correctly because that's equally as important a moment. But actually, like, you called 7 goals on Saturday, right? And I'm sure, Ollie, you're immense, the fine commentator you are, but there's probably one of them that you would have thought, actually, could I have gone with that narrative, or like, could I have ID'd the player quicker? Like, you'll always think that as a football commentator. But actually, in the fullness of the whole broadcast, it doesn't actually matter because people will see the whole broadcast. Whereas the 100-meter sprint, you have to be perfect for 10 seconds, and nothing you say before or nothing you say after matters. Maybe the 2 or 3 contextual lines after Bolt crosses the line, or whoever crosses the line. But actually, that is way harder and way more important to be perfect than anything in a football commentary.
And it's one of the few TV broadcasts where you want to talk throughout those 10 seconds. Not because you need to or you want to be part of the moment, but actually the pace of the commentary adds to the pace of the event. You know, you're bringing an element of speed in your voice that heightens what you're seeing and looking at, because your brain is processing how fast these guys are moving and trying to take in the information of the commentary at an extraordinary rate. I genuinely think it all comes together to be the best thing that you can watch in sports, particularly for a modern day generation.
Oh man,
this
I completely
is
agree with
TikTok sport at its best.
Yeah.
At its best.
And you know what, just thinking off the top of my head here, two things. First of all, Ollie, it's not even 10 seconds of commentary, mate, because the first line is pre-defined because it's their away first time or they're quick out the blocks, right? So the commentator will have that line because there's nothing you can say in 0 to 3 seconds. There's nothing you can say, right? So because you don't know, like, your eyes reacting to it. So the first thing you can only say is they're away first time, they're quick out the blocks or whatever, and that's 2-3 seconds, and
that's shorter. That's shorter.
Yeah,
you just said it there, like. And they're away first time. That's like a second and a half.
And then
you've got a second and a half to work out who is making those first steps. You've got maybe 6-7 steps of an athlete to see who's already getting their nose in front and going. And not only that, you talk about it, it's not 10 seconds. It's actually, you think about 3 minutes beforehand and how your job as a commentator goes from that camera going down each lane. And you bring the tension with a slow, patient voice, just gaining a little bit of the atmosphere, letting the crowd come into it.
But no one's listening to that.
Reeling off. Yeah, but even though that voice is still guiding you through the calm before the intensity and the dramatic change in tone of, he's in lane 6, one of the fastest men in France. Then you move on to the favourite, the Jamaican. This is going to be perhaps his moment to step up. And then the silence before the gun, and then as a commentator you are bang into it, and you need to be working mentally as fast as they're going physically. All comes together. It's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
And I wish athletics was better at promoting itself, because those are the kind of moments that I would just go, right, if I know that is on at that time, say on a Saturday or a Sunday, and I can be free for it, I would like to watch it, whether it's on my phone while I'm out and about or whether it's sat down in front of a television set. Like, it's still something that's so worth watching, the 100 and 200 meters, because it's quick, rapid fire, but it draws you in immediately, and it's so simple, it's so basic. It's just, how fast can one man run? It's not necessary. I mean, there is technique and skill in it, of course, and great sprinters, you have to have a perfect sprinting technique, running technique to be like that, but it's still a basic movement that we can all relate to, and yet there's no way to relate to the speed that those men are going at.
One thing also I thought is that you could possibly have a hologram in another lane of Usain Bolt running his 9.58. So
I don't want that.
They just, so everyone has Bolt out the corner of their eye to kind of motivate a little bit.
Well, they do kind of this weird thing with the 40-yard dash at the NFL kind of training combine, and what they'll do is once somebody's run it, maybe in the day after, they'll go, well, this guy is the fastest wide receiver that we saw this week at the combine. How does he compare to great wide receivers? And they'll do the overlay of kind of the fastest wide receivers from the last 5 years, along with the footage of this guy running. So they're all on the same 40-yard piece of track at one point, and you can just see, like, oh wow, that 4.4 and a 4.6 translates to 4 yards of difference actually out there in terms of raw speed and distance covered in that time, and makes it relatable. I'm not sure about the hologram of Usain Bolt while they're running, because imagine having the greatest moment of your life and you're already seeing Usain Bolt stood there celebrating in front of you as a hologram, and like, I'm still so far behind this guy. I've just won gold, but everybody can see that I'm nowhere near what that man used to be. And great as well that he's probably celebrating that there's no chance his record's going to be broken for a while still. But
mate, it's up there with the Jonathan Edwards triple jump record that stood for like 30-something years. I mean, that could stand for a long time. Floor's all yours, Ollie. Let's talk golf, and yeah, go for it. I was going to say we'll preview the Ryder Cup, but we'll actually do that next Monday because it's next weekend.
I was going to say we'll do that later on. I mean, this was the kind of precursor to the Ryder Cup, went with the BMW Championship. Basically, everybody in Team Europe is there competing for what is one of the biggest prizes on the DP Tour, on the European Tour. And strangely, I mean, a lot of the Ryder Cup guys were right up there. Hovland, Hatton, Fitzpatrick all finished tied 5th. Rahm finishes tied 13th. Like, it's a good-looking leaderboard. Auber and McIlroy both in tied 20th. Very good-looking leaderboard for the Ryder Cup guys. However, Alex Noren, the Swedish golfer, ends up winning in a playoff against a Frenchman, Sadia, who's kind of waiting for that big moment, particularly on the European Tour, to really break out, and everybody thought this could be it for him. Noren's a much more experienced old sage, and he's actually one of the vice captains for Team Europe. And the most interesting thing for me was he was asked after winning in the playoff, if there's an injury last minute, they can bring in a replacement for anybody. Are you going to take your clubs to try and potentially be that guy who puts his name in the hat? And he was very kind of calm about it, clubs will be there regardless. This is, something that hopefully doesn't happen anyway. I'd love to be able to go and compete, but I love just being there as a vice captain. But I just thought it was quite an interesting one, and just a reminder that, if Team Europe does have an injury, there are some good guys in those vice captain positions, like Noren, like Molinari as well, that might just say, well, let's not fly anybody else over. Like, I'm here, I'm on the right time schedule, because they flew out Team Europe straight after this. The picture of them all in their first class seats on the flight off to...
they're good 10 days early.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you want to be a time adjusted, that you don't want to leave anything to chance. What is the point? This is going to be the biggest moment in the next 2 years for some of these guys. Like, you don't leave anything to chance whatsoever. It'd be awful if you were trying to do the South American style. We fly in 3 hours before kickoff type job, so nothing affects
the
us.
altitude.
Ollie,
I've got Europe using VR abuse to prepare for Ryder Cup. So Europe using virtual reality abuse to prepare for Ryder Cup. I mean, it's a bit Mikel Arteta, isn't it? Europe, so what are they doing? They're using virtual reality headsets to replicate the abuse they're expecting from the home crowd in New York.
Yeah, surely just a pair of earplugs does the same thing, because you don't want to be focusing on what's going on around you out there in your vision. You're focusing purely on what's coming down. Because if you're abusive and trying to put off golfers right in front in their eye line, like, that's not going to be stood for by security personnel at the Ryder Cups. You just need a pair of earbuds. So it seems a bit excessive, but I understand it. I think it's all a bit pointless as well, because, as I've said, the tickets are so expensive for this Ryder Cup in New York. I think you are going to get some of, like, the passionate, everyday Joe golf fans will be able to go, but they'll be only going for, like, a day or something. I think you're just outpricing that real, like, lively element. And it's going to be more
rich people can't get drunk and shout abuse?
Yeah, but I just don't think they tend to as much, to be honest. I don't think it's going to... $750 a day.
For an American, I don't think that's much money. Aren't they all loaded?
Every American. I don't think every American is loaded.
The state of New York. I don't think $700 is a lot of money.
I think it's still going to have priced a lot of people out of being able to go, to be honest. So I don't think it's going to be as intense as people are expecting. But look, you prepare for the worst, and anything that's better than that is going to be the best. And yeah, we'll get into the proper Ryder Cup preview just before it gets underway on that weekend of the 26th, 27th, 28th. But it's it's a really good looking leaderboard, as I say, for this last big event for the European guys going into it. On the other side, of course, Scotty Scheffler wins in the US on the PGA Tour event that's taking place, which had a few of the American guys playing in it, obviously, as they kind of get their tune-up ready for the Ryder Cup. Actually, the biggest story, though, was Charlie Hull winning her third LGPA title on the final hole this weekend. This story was only kind of shown to me probably early hours of this morning, to be honest. Charlie Hull basically is 2 shots back, I think it is, going onto the final green as world number one, Gino Titicul, 4 putts on the 18th green. She has a putt for the win, then she has a putt for the tie, and then ballses up both of those and ends up making a putt that gives suddenly Charlie Hull the advantage, and she holes I think it was like a 30-foot putt or something like that.
Charlie Hull's not the woman that smokes on the golf course.
Yeah, she's the smoker.
I didn't realise she's British.
Yeah, she's English. Yeah. What? Who else would be smoking on a golf course except like English?
I mean, the Brits don't smoke much these days, mate.
Yeah, well, I rate that she doesn't vape. That's for sure.
100%.
Vaping's not for me. It's not for me. But yeah, so Hull has this like big long part that she gets to kind of 2 foot and ends up putting in for an easy finish and wins it on the 18th. And I need to go back and actually watch this before I can talk too much more about it. But yeah, Charlie Hull's somebody that is one of the faces of women's golf. I think it obviously is massively beneficial for her to be winning big tournaments. She gets a 3rd LGPA tournament win and does it in ridiculously dramatic fashion as well. I just wish I could say more about it because I've only really read what's happened as opposed to going back and viewing it and catching up on the highlights. But as I said to you, Dave, there is too much sport. I mean, I'm up on a Sunday night watching the American football. I'm trying to catch up with the Premier League I've missed because of other stuff that we're both working on. You know, EFL football, there's golf, there's boxing. I mean, it's just there aren't enough hours in a day or in a week.
Yeah, there's a lot of sport. Especially the next year. I think the extended World Cup for me just makes it feel like it's a longer World Cup. It's a bigger World Cup. Especially from the Club World Cup this summer, it just feels like quite a relentless 12 months of sport.
That was an interesting one this week. Did you see that of people saying, you know, securities regarding America being able to host the World Cup and will there be able to be enough security that the US can host
after the shooting of Charlie Kirk, you mean?
Yeah, and should it just be given to Canada and Mexico? And I was like, well, Mexico's not that safe, is it? I mean,
they love a drug.
All I hear is a lot about the cartels and stuff. I don't know, just give it a Canadian World Cup would be quite nice, though. That'd be pretty friendly.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a totally safe World Cup, then you play it in the UAE, right?
Yeah.
You pick your poison, really.
Yeah. Well, they're all going to be played there soon anyway.
I agree with that. And no, a bit of housekeeping at the end then, Ollie. Next week's pod, for those tuning in on Monday, it's going to be on Wednesday the 24th, I believe. So we'll try and get that out, 24th, 25th. So we'll have a nice preview of the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, but you can just sit tight like Marcelo Bielsa spotted at Liverpool against Peñarol and just, wait for that to come. Good things come to those who wait, mate.
This is the former Leeds United, and is he still the Uruguay boss? I don't know. But Marcelo Bielsa was... Ollie could look this up while I'm...
Yeah, he is. He is the Uruguay boss.
He still is the Uruguay boss.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
No need to sit in a VIP lounge either.
There's
sat
great
in the
footage
stands
of him on
with
social
the
media,
fans.
Marcelo Bielsa. I mean, he's known as this kind of maverick wild card. And he's at... What was the game? Peñarol? Someone against Peñarol?
Liverpool against Peñarol. The Uruguayan Liverpool, obviously.
At the back in this higgledy-piggledy run-down ground in Montevideo, Uruguay, by himself, watching on just because he fucking loves football.